And also, actually, this is part 2 of Ben's presentation, since I'm going to have updated slides that he used. So we're going to see that. And just to let you know, before we get started, everything in this presentation is from 2 different reports that we do at Telegeography. One is international bandwidth. Keep in mind, we're always doing cross-border bandwidth. We're not doing domestic or national. And the second part, where I focus more in Africa, we're looking at IP bandwidth. Okay, there's 2 different reports. And that actually, our global internet report just came out like last week. So this is all super fresh. You're the first. Okay, what we're going to cover today is, I'll do the macro, the international bandwidth outside of Africa, all regions, where and how much. And then we'll look at how Africa fits into this puzzle, so focus in a little bit more on Africa, and then talk a little about pricing in Africa. Then we got to talk about the cloud, right? So where's that cloud now? And what's in store for Africa? And I guess it's probably cloud related. Okay, so start off with global view. This is how the world connects. What we're looking at here is used interregional bandwidth that we collect this data directly from the operators. And all of the data actually that you're going to be shown is we survey internet backbone providers, carriers, etc. for this data, so it's all directly for them. Many of you, or some of you anyway, are our contacts, so you know how we hound you. But looking at this, what do we see? Not a big surprise. The hubs, Europe, US, and East Asia have the fattest pipes, okay? And then everything else that usually gets the content from there, much thinner. So, whose traffic is in those pipes? This is something that's interesting. This has been changing. Since 2011, 2012, we've seen the source of used international bandwidth. The mix has changed, as many of you are probably aware already. What we saw was mostly internet backbone providers up until about 2011, 2012. Now we see the rise of the content providers. And what we're looking at here in this one, the yellow is the internet, okay, internet backbone providers, and the dark blue is content provider private networks, okay, but we classify as private networks, okay, and it's on the growth. So why this change? Well, where's the content, okay, where content happens. What this slide shows is, and actually Ben showed this one too. I don't see Ben, but and where are they all clustered? The different data centers. You see, U.S., North America, Western Europe, and Eastern Asia. And then if you look anything down south, we see just 1 or 2 cities in South America, and then in Africa soon, and then 1 or 2 in Australia as well, okay? And so looking at the used bandwidth, here's what we're seeing. So to connect all those data centers, there is a lot of bandwidth being used, okay, by the content providers. And what this shows is by routes, the mix of source of bandwidth by each route. So we have transatlantic, transpacific, of course, connecting to the hubs. Now we're seeing that content providers make up 70 to 80% of the used bandwidth. And this is primarily submarine bandwidth, so what we're talking about, okay? So we see for intra-Asia, trans-Pacific, and transatlantic, all big. But you see anything going a little bit further south, or to West Asia, or South, or Africa, or Latin America, much smaller, okay? Why? Not many data centers there yet, okay? But as you see, it is starting to grow, and it'll be growing much more very soon. Okay, and we'll look at a little bit of the global macro level for pricing. So what we're looking at here is pricing for IPT, are the circles, and then for transport are the lines. Okay. And you see, as you go away from the hubs, North America, West Europe, the circles get bigger, of course, and the line's a little bit thicker, because it's going back to content. Okay. But if we look at last year's slide, to compare, look at Africa, look at Johannesburg, and okay, it's dropped significantly, 855. Now remember this is the 10G, a mega 10G level. So, and what's interesting here as well is if you compare Africa to Australia, prices are actually dropping faster. That's kind of a big change. A surprise. What's that? That's for the yeah, IPT, 10G IPT port, MRC. It's at the 10G level. I know it's not. We have to compare apple to other regions, so we keep it all at the 10G level. So let's focus more on Africa. Zooming in. Now we're looking at internet bandwidth. Okay. Africa is still out in the lead. About 45% growth, leading the other regions. Middle East and Asia, kind of close behind, but Africa is again growing fastest. Smaller base, but growing fast. Okay, now looking at sub-Saharan Africa, it looks like growth, I mean, we're still growing at 40%, 45%, okay? But compared to last year is 72%. So there has been slowdown a little bit, but still over 40% growth, doubling every 2 years. And actually, before I get to this one Ben didn't show. Now what we're looking at in this one is we're looking capacity, internet capacity, the major routes. 82% of internet capacity from Africa goes to Europe. Okay, so this is showing routes above 50 gig, 50 gig level. Okay, so you notice they're mostly European routes, not much intra-African, except for a couple. That's where it's east side. Bam. Okay, and finally one west side. Yay. Okay, between Accra and Lagos. Yeah, there's a ton. No, the nice one, what? As in, I don't know, this really small Uganda thing? I don't know. Kampala rocks. Wait, what's the Uganda sign? Okay. Yes. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna focus on that in just a sec, but right now we're looking at all of them, and at like 50 gig and higher. Once we go to intra-African, it gets a little bit more interesting and fun. So intra-Africa connectivity. In 2014, 8% of the internet bandwidth was within region. Okay, and now in 2018, it's 14%, so it's increasing. But if you look, last year was 14% as well. But so what's happening here? Yes.
Sorry, you're talking about bandwidth increasing. We've also been learning over the last few days that we're bringing a lot of stuff locally. All right,
What?
all the content's coming local. We've got Google, Facebook, everyone else. So, what are your stats? Are your stats taking all that local traffic into account when you're talking about internet usage? Is that coming into effect?
No, but I mean, not directly. We don't track that, but you win some kind of prize, because that's exactly what I was going to say. So if it's flattening out, remember we're cross-border. Okay, so if the traffic is localized, then you won't see. Here we compare because we look as a cross-border. So I'm comparing Europe to Africa. But if you're localizing it within the country, it doesn't show up here. It shows up here by not growing for international or cross-border. Does that make sense? So that's basically what it's showing. You stole my fire. Thank you. But good job. Now I can just skip the last slide, okay? Okay, and this one must look familiar to everybody. Ben showed this one. This is, by the way, this is an AFIF exclusive. We don't publish this anywhere. I just make this for this presentation, so love this one. Yay! Okay, this is last year's though. So now we drop down to the 1 gig is the cutoff, and top 50 routes. That was in 2017. Okay, well there Uganda's there. So. Bam! 2018, everything gets a little fatter. Okay. And east side, of course, is, you know, a few more routes, much thicker lines, a lot more internet bandwidth, but west side's starting to pop up a little bit too, so a little west side. Okay. So things are looking good there. Okay, now pricing. Oh, they did it this way. Okay, caution. Okay, this is for Chris and Walton. I don't know if any of them are here, but they always, when we do pricing, get to realize when we do pricing, we're doing pricing data since 2002, directly from the carriers, and we're also talking not just to them, but everybody else and the buy side, etc. Prices that we show, this is the important thing, are weighted median prices for single units, 1 term, okay? Kind of a very standard. It's probably more expensive. So of course there's a broad range of prices, exists for different route cities, but the important thing is substantial discounts exist for higher volume and longer term. So content buyers, or content providers are not paying these prices, okay? So they're the first ones to scream, no, that's way too high. So now that I've said that, I can go on with pricing. This is what we've been saying. Once again, it's all, they collect pricing at the 10 gig level. Here, this is like the one that Ben showed earlier as well. What we see is over the last 3 years, a big drop, down now to near $20,000, okay? And this is in line with all other regions getting close to, you basically all within under the 30. So kind of bringing Africa down to pricing levels, well, to South Africa, to Johannesburg, with the rest of the world. And then keeping on transport, yeah, now this is 10G again, but looking at, of course, prices vary by region, of course, but this makes sense. This is in line with us talking about the hubs, the major hubs in Africa. South Africa, yeah, and you see Kampala? Hey, that was for you, man. No, but actually now we get a lot more data for that route as well, so it's something that's taken up. So it's the first inland one for that, you know. Anyway, so Johannesburg to London, of course, is the least expensive, but and the red, of course, is last year. Blue, dark blue is for this year. And we see how far the prices have dropped over the last year. And interesting thing, it's usually east side has always been a little bit less expensive than the west side, but we're seeing it either even out or change for the moment anyway. And then yeah, we'll see what happens next year with Kampala, Marseille. And then there's transit prices, and this we kind of, you saw that in the previous slide for Johannesburg, but we have also for Nairobi, Lagos, Kampala, and Dar es Salaam. I don't have Kampala there. Oh yeah, I do have. Right on. I'm Kampala heavy today. Once again, all Kyle. Okay, and then comparing globally again, looking at the big picture, where Johannesburg sits. Also, if you notice, Sao Paulo, okay, they're still a little bit higher, but they've been dropping very quickly. I'll talk a little bit more about that a little later, but dropped beneath Sydney. So what's next? Oh shoot, I forgot. On the other slide, I accidentally, we showed Microsoft's data centers is already being launched. That's, unless there's an announcement from Brett, that's the cartographer that did that. Maybe he's looking at maps, I don't know. But so yeah, it launched. Well, no, hasn't been announced yet, so we'll wait for that. And also, actually another thing to remember too, when we see everything going to Europe, all the capacity to Europe, we'll see what happens when Sachs and Sail come online and see if that, will go start shifting the traffic through South America to usually the US, where a lot of the websites are hosted, etc. So that'll be interesting to see next year what's going to happen with that. So, oh, there's Brett. Plug. Hey. Okay. So now, what's next? Of course, you can't talk about what's next unless you talk about the cloud. So, brought this up, this slide. Oh, actually, I lied. This is from this is a third report that's like more enterprise focused, but where we track cloud data centers and on-ramps to clouds. And so this is what this map is. In this map, orange dots, but not Nina's orange dots, different ones. These are on-ramps, and I won't quiz you on that. And then in the center, data centers are planned build-outs. There, the cartographer got it right. So for South Africa, but what we see happening if we compare Latin America to Africa, we're seeing a lot of trends, things that are taking place in Latin America, usually 3 to 5 years ahead of Africa. So it's kind of maybe a good indicator to look at what's happening in South America as well. The cloud data centers for the big three all opened up in Sao Paulo, 2012. Okay, December of 2011, but I'll say 2012, 2014 Azure, and 2017 Google. Okay. Now, what do we see in the earlier slides? Once you have those data centers, you kind of have to connect the dots. Okay. So what this map is this shows just the content provider investments in submarine cables. And you notice, like looking at South America, what happened just a couple of years after the cloud data centers came online. You have 3 new cables by content providers, or really 4. Monet. Well, those are all the Google ones. So investing in I know Angelo cables too, but Monet, Junior, Tanit, and Curie that are all going to come online this year or into the next year. Okay, very quickly. And we're seeing within South America that traffic to United States, like Africa, gets content from Europe. For South America, it's all from the US. And what we're seeing, once again, since we're looking international, we're seeing the international growth starting to drop for Latin America. It's about, to the US, it's about 26% growth, I think, in the 25-30% growth, where normally it was up in the 40s. Okay, so we're starting to see that slow down a little bit more, and we are starting to see more routes growing faster within the region. But it didn't happen right away. It was in the next couple of years after data centers come online that you start to see some of the routes between countries. Since the cloud data centers are only in Sao Paulo, some of the routes, of course, are going to Brazil. So maybe we'll see something like this. And this is just a list of all the content provider cable investments getting heavier and heavier because a ton of traffic, okay, ton of traffic moving, so have to start investing in their own cables, okay. So, and also for another interesting thing to remark is in South America, after a lull of not many large systems being built in South America since the early 2000s, now there are over 12 major systems planned starting this year for the next 2 or 3 years. So that's what following any of this that's happening in Latin America, we'll probably see the same thing happening in Africa. Nothing announced yet, but just connecting the dots. So yeah, we'll see the outlook is basically what I just said, that we'll see the content provider traffic growing on those routes. Latin America, Europe, Africa. Of course, the prices are dropping because volume is increasing. And in-traffic traffic poised for a jump in growth. Looking at Latin America, that's what we're seeing too. So we saw that inter-regional starting to grow, and back to the US is still growing. I mean, 30% is not bad, 25-30% growth, but you're seeing within the region intra growing at much higher levels, like 75%. So maybe that's what we'll be seeing in Africa. That's all. So any questions? Okay, well, you know where to find me. Well, maybe. Okay, sure.
Hi, my name's Alan Levine. I'm chairman of the Internet Society of South Africa. Yesterday we presented a portal that we've created in conjunction with AfriNIC, which is a way of exploring the different global ISPs and telecommunications. What is your licensing with regards to your kind of data that you collect? Is there any way that we can incorporate it into our wider portal and give you full credit and
yeah, definitely. I mean, I'll put you in contact with people that can help you out. Because on our website, actually, there are a lot of free resources. So maybe you know the submarine cable map. So, and it's just been updated. So it's looking good. Oh, I didn't do a shout out, but anyway, you see the co-location growing. I took out that slide, but it is growing down here. So yeah, I know. I'm like, oh, Michelle's gonna kill me. Okay. Any other questions? If not, I'll give time to the other two guys, and you know, just come and find me. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.